Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Climate. This is ecoAmerica's weekly webcast series where we hear from local and national leaders offering ideas and perspectives on building public support and political resolve for equitable climate solutions in the U.S. I am Annie Fett-Cruz, Director of the Blessed Tomorrow program at ecoAmerica. I'm your host today, and I'm excited to welcome you and, as always, to extend you my peace and gratitude for joining us. Before we jump into our discussion, here are some brief logistics items. This session is being recorded. We will make it available on demand on our YouTube channel, as we always do. Please engage with us online using the hashtag Let's Talk Climate throughout our discussion and in the days to come. And also please use the chat function to ask questions throughout the webcast. You can send those questions to us by choosing all panelists from the drop down in the chat box. And ecoAmerica staff are standing by to answer any tech questions and also to help facilitate the Q&A with all of you, which we're going to get to in just a bit. So we are in the thick of the election season, and we're here today to talk about the how, the when, the where, and most importantly, the why of voting climate as a matter of faith. And I know that faith and politics are a tricky topic to navigate, but really as we so recently were reminded by the life of the Honorable Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, faith can really play a significant role in how we live out our civic duty and also the collective moral responsibility that we have to each other. And Justice Ginsburg's Jewish faith was central to her calling to be an agent of justice. I actually had a conversation with my colleague, Rebecca Rare, who runs our Climate for Health program earlier this week, about her own rabbi's Rosh Hashanah sermon. And she spent some time celebrating what she called Justice Ginsburg's holy chutzpah. And Rebecca immediately thought of the late Congressman John Lewis's Good Trouble, another justice icon that we lost and celebrated this year. And I am so pleased, though, to say that we are joined by two wonderful faith leaders who I personally think embody this calling to holy chutzpah and good trouble, and who have really great insight for us when it comes to faith, to climate, and voting in 2020. So please join me in welcoming our guests, Brian McLaren, American pastor, author, and activist, and Jackie Dupont-Walker, Director of the Social Action Commission at the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So welcome again, Brian and Jackie.
Great. Thank you so much, Anita.
Nice to have you both with us. And I think I've mentioned this to you and framed this often, that our audience today is made up of people from a variety of sectors across the ecoAmerica network. So these are people from different backgrounds, maybe levels of engagement when it comes to faith and climate. And there may be some assumptions either way. So I want to ask a tough question first, just to get at some of these underlying assumptions and get them out there. When it comes to climate change, are people of faith part of the problem or the solution, and why? And so maybe, Brian, you want to start us off here?
Sure. Well, it's a good question to start with, Annie. Let me speak as a Christian. Christians in all their variety, from Catholics to Protestants, liberals, conservatives, make up about 72%, 71% of the American electorate. And traditional Christian theology provides the raw material for a really responsible attitude toward climate and for a really irresponsible attitude. And I grew up on the more irresponsible end of the spectrum. We were taught to read the Bible literally, which required us to reject evolution, and that put us at odds with science, including the science that gives us the data on climate change. And I'm sad to say that a significant percentage of Americans are still in this religious context that predisposes them to be, I'm sad to say, part of the problem. But on the opposite extreme, there's a more progressive expressions of faith that see the biblical stories not as resources of historic or scientific information, but as deep reservoirs of meaning and inspiration. And so, for example, these Christians would find the Bible's origin stories in Genesis as powerful motivations to care about the environment and about climate. For example, we were created to live in harmony with this earth, not as its rulers or exploiters dominating it, but as members made of the same earth and soil as our fellow creatures. to be its caretakers and protectors. And even on a deeper level, there's an approach, and you see this in Christianity, but you see it in Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, across different religious traditions, that actually tells us to see the physical world as an expression, like an artistic expression of God as artist. That gives us a sacred attitude toward the world, and would then make us say, well, why would we want to burn up this sacred, holy, beautiful creation? And then maybe the last thing I'd say is that there are a lot of people who start like me on the more anti-science, climate denial side of religion, and then are moving quickly to the other side. And we have so many allies in this. For example, Pope Francis. I think one of the most significant religious documents in the last 500 years was his document Laudato Si, that tells us to hear the cries of the earth and the cries of the poor. And amazing people, like many of the people affiliated with ecoAmerica and Blessed Tomorrow, and people like Jackie Dupont-Walker, who welcome the science and bring faith-rooted values and inspiration and motivation to deal with this challenge ahead of us.
Jackie, what are your thoughts on, where people of faith fit into this as the solution and or the problem? Oh, you're muted still.
I guess I should say I'm muted. This is really probably a more complex question than it appears to be, because people of faith is not a unified group. And in the way we choose to silo or are siloed, we present ourselves differently. We believe that our brand is sometimes more important than what brings us together as people of faith. And because our brand is sometimes popularized in certain ways, we fail to find ways to come together around issues that are important. It's always been amazing to me how we could all read the same document called the Bible and come away with so many different interpretations of what it is saying to us to do. And so I would say that from where I sit in the historic Black church, one of the problems we bring to the issue is that we have not prioritized this issue because there's so many other things we believe are in front of it. To the degree that we can all see that we're in this together, like John Lewis and like Justice Ginsburg, we are part of the solution. But when we compartmentalize the issue and we see the face of the movement as being something that does not embrace the priorities we believe are life-threatening daily, we become a problem. The other piece is, I just firmly believe that the communities of faith have made our institutional existence more important than it needed to be. And so in this virtual environment, I think we're being called to task. We have to now look at what are we going to do with all the real estate that we have, depending upon how long we believe COVID-19 is going to be here. But I think more than anything else, it calls us back to an earnest conversation with God. And hopefully out of that will come a way that the church can be more part of the solution than a part of the apathy about the problem.
Wonderful. I mean, I think that's something, you and I had a conversation earlier this week where you were just sharing some of those real experiences about the barriers that AMEs in the AME church are encountering, to vote, to be safe, to be healthy, to even to worship, as you were just sharing, and all of which, have the roots in the same systemic injustices. And so I'm wondering if you would continue to elaborate on that, as what you were sharing with me earlier this week, just in terms of what you see the environmental and particularly the people of faith in the environmental movement who are getting it right and what we're getting wrong, especially as we think about getting ready to vote in this election.
Well, there's nothing else I can think about except getting ready to vote and being counted in the census. And those are so intimately involved in this year and for this decade in particular, that's the case. And so as I think about your question, joining the movement and working internally to help it adapt to all needs of the sector is very important. So whether we're talking about low wealth communities, communities of color, those suffering from all types of disparities, or those simply apathetic and hopeless, I think we've got that right because we joined the movement with that intention. And why don't we see a better outcome? It would be the next question. Well, I think too often we're apologetic in truth-telling, or as John Lewis has told us, get it into good trouble. We have in our conversations and our interactions tried to find ways to be less offensive to each other. And sometimes in the process, because we come at the conversation with different lenses, we fail to communicate the real story. So even if there are admonitions and exclusions that have to be repeated, we have to remember the advice that I received from a media guru. It says that in today's world of communicating, messaging takes 27 hits to get attention and 7 more to get action. So that means that our custom of making an announcement or sending a save the date and expecting people to calendar to get engaged is really kind of gone out the window. We have to become incessant pests of important information. So now we understand the emails and the tweets that we delete without reading because we've gotten them at least 20 times. But the media would tell us we have to get them at least 34 times before we're going to take action. I think that's where we've gotten it wrong, because we believe, because it has been said, because we put it in the mission statement of our churches and our faith groups, because we put out a press release, that it's done, that everybody knows where we are and we can refer them back to it. We must become incessantly or insanely insistent on what needs to happen. I think the other thing that we've gotten wrong is a kind of labeling that allows us to be comfortable where we are and not have to do more than momentary connection. For example, and I think you appreciate this, Brian, I was in a meeting of persons dealing with the foster care system, and I was told that I was invited to a meeting primarily of evangelicals. And so I'm sitting in the meeting and I'm listening and looking and kind of cautious because I was evangelical. And then finally, I just said to someone, you need to help me out, because it was constantly said every time I said something that as evangelical, as if it had to be different. I said, will someone simply tell me what evangelical is? Because sure, I missed something. And so one gentleman simply went to his phone and brought it over to me. And he had these items. Evangelical means you're born again, that you focus on Jesus crucified and the impact it has on our faith, that you believe that humans need to be converted, and that you have a high regard for the Bible. The last one got me. It says it includes activism, belief that faith should be.
I think we lost Jackie's sound.
Yeah, Jackie, you went on mute again.
Okay, so
activism. You ended on activism.
Get down to activism. Okay, that's why I got it. With the activism, it said that what you believe should be reflected in your public life. And after I finished reading that, I couldn't wait to raise my hand and say to the group, I read this, and would you believe that the AME Church is evangelical? The silence in the room was stifling. They were not willing to let me into the community of evangelicals. Now, be clear, from what I see with the conservative evangelicals, I didn't want to go. That was hard for me to admit. But I think that's what we don't get right when we don't delve down and deal with those, because there is more that brings us together, but how we present our faith, what people see about faith, causes us to claim those labels more than what we have together. So the faith community, with all of our scriptures, and you can go to all of the references and find the scriptures that tell us we must be better stewards of the earth. We must make it real. And so for me, that part of social activism that I enjoy, that my church enjoys, is a part of the other piece that we practice, but we're known more for that piece. So now let's find a way. What we've gotten wrong is finding a way to say, let's agree to disagree. And I call that developing a net. You have coalitions where you have to agree and come together, but with a net, There are places where you can come together, where your ideas and goals cross. And when that happens, build upon that. And I think that's what we have to begin to do in order to get this right.
Oh wow, such an important illustration there. And I'm interested. Let's get into this voting topic, because it seems like that is a place where there's potential synergies, where the net holds us. Where we can all be working towards getting out the vote, encouraging people to register, helping them understand that process in a way that is appropriate for our faith traditions, 501c3 status, and yet we can be equally communicating that we are called to be in our civic responsibilities as people of faith, and therefore bring those values forward, which can and should include climate solutions. So Brian, I know you're doing a lot of work in this, and so is Jackie, so I really want to hear from both of you about the work you're doing. But let's go to Brian. If you could just share some of what you're working on and what you're seeing with others that you're working with.
Sure. Well, the first thing I should say is that, Jackie, being rooted in the historic Black churches, they have the record on building voter strength through their churches, because from the very beginning, they've had to deal with voter suppression and in so many different ways. And so in many ways, I take my inspiration from the historic Black churches in the United States for saying that churches should be at the forefront of mobilizing people to vote. I should also say, unfortunately, that some Christians, in fact, large numbers of them, have been mobilizing people to vote as if only one issue were important, and that tends to be the issue of abortion. And what we're trying to do, and I'm trying to do in all of my efforts as an activist and writer and so on, is try to help people see that there's a whole range of deeply important moral issues. And the environment and climate change is not one of them. Climate change is part of every one of them. Every issue you care about gets worse if we have a crumbling ecosystem. And so the climate really is part of every single issue that we care about. So, for example, I work with Vote Common Good, and Vote Common Good is trying to help Christians own a broad range of moral issues and help people of faith to understand that their faith should motivate them not just to care about their own faith, but also about their neighbor's faith. And because all of us want to breathe clean air and drink clean water, we better care about the earth, and we better care about the climate. I think about a group like, I should say that one of the things we've done is, if this would be of interest to people, is we prepared some really thorough but also understandable resources to help clergy and church leaders know what they're allowed to do within 501c3 limits. And there's a whole lot of freedom that people have, and we want religious leaders to go to the very limit of what they're allowed, not to go beyond it, but to use all the freedom that they're allowed. I look at a group like Franciscan Action Network. If anyone's interested, you could go to franciscanaction.org, and they're putting out powerful videos about the moral imperative to vote. I think about Jewish organizations like Trua and Bend the Ark. They've brought together over 2,000 rabbis and other Jewish leaders across Jewish denominations, again, motivating them to vote, and not just to vote around one or two issues, but to take a range of integrated issues and integral morality that for which the environment is really central. And then, of course, there are groups, Annie, like yours. You think about what ecoAmerica and Blessed Tomorrow have done and groups like Interfaith Power and Light, Green Faith, and many others that are bringing people of faith together to say, not only do we preach about the environment or pray about the environment and care about the environment, but we're also practically getting involved to motivate people to vote for candidates who believe that climate change is real and who have concrete plans to do something about it. So that kind of momentum is building. People would be so inspired if they get to sit in some of the meetings I'm in with denominational leaders who get it and who are mobilizing their people to take action.
And there are so many who get it. And Jackie, you are one of them. And I know that you've been really shepherding this forward with, the Board of Bishops and other leaders within the AME Church for quite some time. And so would you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing, particularly around voter engagement? We'd love to hear about it.
Thank you. And I want to start by inviting Brian to go to www.amethealert.org. And I want you to send other people to that location because we believe we have one-stop shopping for moving people out. But I'd like to just play a video, which is a new way we've approached it in 2020, trying to be relevant in real time, and then describe some of the other things we're doing in order to get people out. But just to get attention in this virtual environment, it is proving to be extremely important.
Great. Mark's going to play that for us now.
Because it does. Hello, my name is Jonathan Veal, and I'm a childhood friend and high school teammate of George Floyd. Little would I believe that my guy, your new acquaintance, would have an impact on the entire globe, moving people to get involved, to say, I get it, to declare that Black Lives Matter. The way we can say it powerfully is to vote in the general election on Tuesday, November the 3rd. I thank AME, The Alert, for asking me to join with them. I accept the challenge. It's our watch. Hashtag vote and take a buddy. I wish I could take Floyd, but it's too late for that. Will you stand in for him and others that have been senselessly murdered? Thank you.
And that's one of some 20 PSAs, we call them. That dates me when I say PSA, videos telling a message. There are two of George Floyd's friends who have now dedicated themselves to that organization. You saw 88 Chance. And so they did a video, and we're partnering with them. They're using our materials. They're going to our website. So the first thing I think that was important for us this time is to ask our Council of Bishops to let's set a goal. We have made public announcements about how many people we were going to register and drive to the polls. In 2016, I think we said 500,000. And so we thought as a commission and AME Wheeler committee that we were being very bold to say 1 million people to the polls. Well, in our church, you present to the bishop, but they deliberate after you finished and left the room. And so the presentation was made, and those of us who are not bishops left the room. And when we got the feedback with their report out, they declared we will mobilize 1.5 million voters to the polls. And that has been extremely important and empowering to the people. That meant within our church, where we have little silos, we have now 17 components and organizations who have heard. If our Council of Bishops made that commitment, that means we all have to roll up our sleeves and work. So we're working together internally in a way that we have not in the past. But the external partners are also important as we talk about unity. So let's think about the fact that we have People for the American Way, that you may remember started when Norman Lear and Barbara Jordan in 1999 said, oh, heck, we've got to deal with the moral majority. And they founded an organization that provides us information like the do's and don'ts and happens to have legal counsel available so you can call on the spur of a moment when you believe you're in trouble and you're doing a 501c4 or something and it should be a 501c3 and help you figure out how to get it done in the interest of your community. And then Oprah Winfrey has decided this year that she's going to do something, and her group is called On Your Vote. And in fact, one of our videos is star of Oprah Winfrey's television show, Green Leaf. Her name is Deborah Winans, and she's done several videos for us. And then you add Michelle Obama, who we're back partnering with her when we all vote. Add the really staples like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. It is really there to help people understand what's happening, especially in the rural areas where tricks are played and there's a feeling that you won't have time to correct it in time to cast your vote. And then Lawyers and Collars, where lawyers and clergy are getting together ready to mobilize in this election season. So we really are demonstrating to the world that we're in all of this together. And then there's a group called Black Church Action Fund that is founded across the country to encourage people to text and phone, to recognize the digital divide is still there, and to still find ways to make sure they're engaged. That partnership is extremely important. So we too were founded in 1999 when we thought the moral majority was the worst thing that could ever happen. Of course, we didn't have a crystal ball. We couldn't see this time, but we say it's our watch. So mobilizing is so important because when you look at the stats of how many people were registered and did not vote in 2016 and 2018, we believe that mobilizing the vote is more important in this election than registering. If registering is a byproduct, that's fine, but now we have to mobilize. Our toolkit, which is on the website, is step by step. So if you're in a faith body where the pastor gets it and said, let's organize, there's a model. If you're in a faith body where you get it and a couple people get it and the pastor and leadership says, well, we have so much on the table, why don't you guys go do it and we'll back you up. We have that model. And if you happen to be in a faith body where you seem to be the only person doing anything, there's a model for you to go out and partner with some of the other groups. That's extremely important. We're encouraging people wherever you are, for your family Zoom meeting, or the Zoom meetings you're on where there's a moment where you don't know what to do and everybody's waiting for the meeting to start. Talk about voting. Try to get 10 people on that call to say they will encourage 10 people. Get their name and phone number. Keep track of them. Make sure that they keep track of those people until they know they voted. We know as women how it is when you really want something to happen in your family and group. You have a way of making people feel if they don't do it, their life is going to be at risk. When grandma wants you to come for something, grandma makes sure you get there. We're saying it's that important that it happens. But we also see this as evangelizing. The energy that we've seen around this with people seeing the church be the church has become important. They see the church is carrying beyond its own existence. The church is going beyond the predictable to do the unpredictable. So we're going in places where nobody else may have been. We're also urging people to volunteer at the polls, to do what is necessary to set up electronic communication to benefit, especially those in areas where Wi-Fi and broadbanding is not yet there. Let these companies that say they have, and by the way, the broadband companies are saying for 30 days they're going to make internet accessible to people and they can cancel with no penalty. Get that word out. I heard that from Charter yesterday. We're going to get that word out. You can't afford Charter, but for 30 days, and wait until 30 days before the election, though, guys. It's 40 days today. Wait until 30 days before the election and get it so you have it on election day. And the other thing that's important to us is that we link our messaging to the environmental change. Now, we didn't play that one today, but two of our messages clearly state the issues that relate to climate. Right now, I'm sitting in Los Angeles where we should be at about 70, and we're sweating at 90. It is clear that we have an issue. So all of these tools are important, but we're linking the messaging to the quality of life and going through the ballot so that people understand every item on the ballot that links to their life. And where there may be a ... leading to climate change and environment, we're actually making that a solid line through the conversation. Just in closing, we did a presentation at one of our Friday night at 6 p.m. meetings where 100 team leaders come. And we met Friday night at 6 p.m. where 100 team leaders come. We did the ballot. And we're told that it's gone off the chain because people are empowered with information to go and tell somebody else what they've just learned. And that document has been shared. And I don't know what trending is, but I would assume it's close to trending from what I'm seeing. And so we just have a responsibility to be as fervent about this election as any other thing that's a part of our faith walk. And that has come alive in 2020 in the strongest way since Amy V. Alert has been around. And so that's what we see in 2020. And we plan to take this on to the interest in the environment. Because if we can wake people up and draw the line and make the connection and create the linkage, then we have to not back up after November 3rd.
Wow. Well, I imagine our listeners, yeah, we're giving you thumbs up, Jackie, but I hope our listeners are also getting energized by this. You know, it may feel daunting. It may feel, maybe you're confused about how you can get involved, but you've just illustrated some really powerful ways that the AME Church not only is doing this work internally, but is inviting others into it. And so I'm curious to hear from both of you, you know, what can people listening today do? How can they partner with you, with the faith community? Again, they may or may not be someone who's already invested. Maybe they're not a person of faith themselves. Maybe they're not necessarily prioritizing voting engagement. What can they be doing with you? What should they be doing themselves?
Well, I'll be glad to jump in on that, Annie. A friend of mine says that people of faith don't care if you are like them. They just want to know that you like them. In other words, you know, maybe you're an atheist and you're dealing with people of faith. His point is, you know, you don't have to pretend to be more religious than you are, but you have to show religious people that you like them. That often starts by just acknowledging they exist. Uh, and it can include things like invitations. So in every religious community, we can virtually guarantee this. If you want to find a person who's committed to addressing climate change, rooted in their faith, those people are out there. In fact, I bet that Blessed Tomorrow and ecoAmerica, you could just go on the website and you could find a lot of those people. You could find people in your region who are committed. So this means you're having some action or activity or event relating to climate change. And it would make so much sense to bring religious leaders in, because this gives a message to them that they're, you know, that they're included and you want them to be part of this movement. And then I would say another thing really worth knowing is that for people on the outside of religious communities, you would be surprised how much is happening inside of some religious communities. Now, sadly, as we mentioned, there are some that don't get it yet. But I'll never forget, I was at a synodical gathering. This is a whole lot of Lutheran clergy brought together in Minnesota, where there are a lot of Lutherans. And I was in the room when they had a vote about climate change, and to what degree were they going to encourage all of their congregations to get involved in addressing climate change. And I got to witness the entire Lutheran Synod have a unanimous vote for something, and it was for this. I have a friend, a Methodist minister, just down the road from where I live in Florida, and he's got a plan to help. They're working on a plan to help every Methodist church not only get solar panels on all of the roofs of the churches, but then to create co-ops to help members of their congregations go solar as well. This kind of practical long-term work for the environment becomes really important. And to bring it back to voting, if you're investing and working with your congregation to get to do the practical solutions, then you better believe you're going to be motivated to go vote for politicians who will multiply your efforts rather than undercut them at every turn. So to me, the long-term action and the electoral action really feed into each other.
Great. Jackie, what would you add or share or reflect on?
I really want to urge people who have any idea that they want to carry out and they're not sure how to do it, to connect with us. Please go to our website. There are ways, there are partners listed. There are over 30 partners listed. And just click on their websites and try to find a way to work. But if you just have an idea and you want to talk to us, just give us a call. 213-494-9493 is my number. They're accusing me of not sleeping on a regular basis. I'm telling you, I'm really not sleeping now. I want November 4th or 5th or 6th, depending on how many absentee ballots we have, to be able to say I did everything that I could possibly do. Engage. Find a way just to talk to someone about this, even if you are skeptical at this point, just to talk about what happened. I guarantee you that in any conversation, you will find out how important it is that the ballot has something that affects something you care about, whether it's a judge, whether it's a state legislator, whether it's a county sheriff, whether it's a district attorney. So we're not just talking about the top of the ballot. It is very important. If you just read how voting is protected, it is very important who goes to Congress, who goes to the House, and who goes to the Senate in impacting. And when you read the history of what happened in 5 elections where the decision was not made by the Electoral College, I think you will be at the polls 24 hours, just like they do at the stores to get the newest phone. You'll be there to make sure that you are the first people your ballot is counting. Early voting is important. Help people find the resources. We're a little skittish and we're asked to be protected with social distancing. There are resources. I mean, this week we'll be talking to a consultant for Uber and Lyft, and they're talking about how they can engage. And so keep track of what's happening. For example, on our website, when you go and you click register to vote, that's a way for you to check your registration. Do not take for granted that you're in a place where it could not possibly happen. I know my fellow Los Angelinos don't want me to tell a family secret, but in 2018, some 10,000 names disappeared from the ballot because of an electronic glitch. Those people knew they were registered to vote, and it was a glitch. We can say it wasn't voter suppression, but as my dad said, if you're killed accidentally, you're just as dead. So if your name is off the ballot, you're just as unregistered as if you didn't. Confirm that you're registered to vote. Anyone you see, take them to our website, click on it, confirm that you're registered to vote. And guess what happened? As a result of you signing up with our website, we'll remind you when the deadline is to apply for an absentee ballot if you need to. We'll remind you what the deadline is to return your ballot. We'll remind you when it's election day. We'll tell you when you click another button where your polling place is. One-stop shopping. And for those who want to do their own thing, take the toolkit. Any page you see in it, you can use the roster to keep track of your 10 people or the do's and don'ts. Put your logo up at the top. Just put it at the bottom. Compliments of AMEV Alert. Make it your own. Create your own toolkit from the work. We want people to understand what is being said. This is probably the most impactful election in our lifetime. But even if you don't agree, take it as a person of faith that whatever is put in our heart and put in front of us now, we must do it with excellence and maximally. God was calling us to this. There is nothing less. So if you're like me and you look at some of the stories in the Bible and say, you know, if I was there in Esther's time, I would have been bolder than Esther. I would not have been hesitant. But now is your time. It's your watch. So be the Esther that you're called to be in 2020.
Love it. I could just listen to Jackie all day talk about this. It's so inspiring. And I really do hope that others listening are just finding that one thing, you know, digging in where you are, where you can, and starting there. You know, it's not about doing it all at once if this isn't something you've done before, but check your registration, you know, check out the resources that we're sharing, find someone in your community that you can work with, those 3, 6, or 10 people that Jackie was referencing that you can reach out to and encourage them to do the same. I'm just curious, if you have any questions, you can chat them to us here. We did have someone who was inquiring about helping young people get out to vote. And I will tell you, my 15-year-old wishes she could vote. She's encouraging all of her 18-year-old friends to get out to vote. So at least where I sit, it seems like they're pretty activated, but we know from research and polling that sometimes that's not the case. Is there anything that you guys would share about, you know, either what you're doing or experiences you have with working with young people?
But be sure you connect with Michelle Obama's operation When We All Vote. I tried to attend her National Voter Registration Day event, and it was so focused toward young people that I felt like a dinosaur. But all of the things she has on, the meetings they call, the pop-up meetings, the occasions, her chats without you knowing when she's going to pop in or not, are designed to really, really impact the young people. But with ours, let me just brag. Our website is being redesigned and managed by millennials. Our PSAs and our social media are being designed by millennials. Get involved, young people. There are things you can do. Tell the people who appear to have collateral material you think needs to be updated and freshened. Tell them you do it because we're watching the millennials who have engaged with us now bring such freshness to the work. And that's what we look for. We want to pass this baton to someone who is awake. And as they say, don't just say you woke, get up and do something. So do that. And to young people, we are waiting, we are welcoming, just get involved and do your own thing. We'll support you.
Amen. Brian, would you add anything to that?
Only that like so many things in life, a personal contact makes so much difference. And parents, grandparents, friends, siblings, teachers, everybody putting out a word. And sometimes it really helps to ask the specific question and ask for an answer. Can I count on you to vote? Hey, I know you care about climate change. Can I count on you to vote with that in mind? And you know, give yourself permission to ask a question like that. That could really make the difference for somebody else.
That is so true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I want to go to a last minute kind of lightning round question here, if I can, as moderator. What would you both want to see more of in these final weeks with the election coming up? And what would be one thing that you would ask our audience to do today in the spirit of that holy chutzpah, that good trouble that we've been referencing throughout the webcast?
Well, I'll be glad to go for. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Stay focused. And there's so many distractions out there. And so if you happen to be somewhere or have an opportunity to set the conversation, set the stage, then talk about the voting and talk about your voting plan, what you plan to do, and ask someone about their voting plan and engage them in those moments and talking about how they're going to do it. And people will say politics is too messy. We know it's going to get nasty. That's what happens in the last few days. But begin now to engage with people so that they will understand that voting is still the priority, even if there are some hit pieces that come out and it looks ridiculous. It's important to stay there. I think we are very grounded in our faith in ways that we believe we should be, and stay prayed up. The intercessory prayer warriors are needed more than ever in this last 30 days. So in the process of our daily prayer, add on a few, have some intercessory prayer warriors, the people who are at home, that we're telling them to stay in place so that they will not harm themselves in the COVID environment. Give them that inspiration to pick up that phone and call, join the phone banks, do the e-blasting, do the things that they can do and still be a valuable contributor to this process. So take advantage of this opportunity these last 30 days, every day, to do something. And I didn't mention the fact we have a daily countdown that comes out from our General Secretary. It is on our website. And there's an action item every day on that daily countdown. Send it out to someone. It may not be your thing for that day, but somebody else's. And so we really urge you to make this a high priority and find that link, because all of us experiencing some very strange climate situations, all of us experiencing communities in our immediate neighborhoods that have environmental justice issues, all of us are experiencing the kinds of water contamination. And we know that Flint, Michigan was just the tip of the iceberg. So be woke and get up and do something. That's what I wish. And let's stay focused, stay focused, stay focused.
Thank you. Brian, what would you add?
Well, it's hard to add anything to something said that eloquently and well. The two words that come to my mind, the first one is courage. You know, a lot of clergy, I'm sad to say this, but it's true, a lot of clergy are afraid to speak up about issues, including climate, because some members of their congregation don't want to hear it. And I wish that those clergy members would have the courage to do what's right, to speak up about race, to speak up about poverty, to speak up about peace, but especially speak at this time too about our planet that needs us to stand up and protect it from greed and ignorance. So I wish that clergy would have courage, but here's something else. I wish that every individual would have the courage to use their social media, to use other media that they have that you don't have to fight with anybody. You don't have to insult anybody. All you have to do is say what matters to you. You know, that to set an example by saying, one of the reasons I'm going to vote for so-and-so is because they really have a conviction to care for the planet and care for the climate. And that's something that matters a lot to me. You aren't insulting anybody, but just have the courage to say what matters to you. That's something I would wish for people. And then the second word is collaboration. You know, some problems are way too big for any one group or organization or sector or institution to solve. People of any one religion aren't going to solve climate change. People of all religions together will have a little more strength if we collaborate, but we even can't do it. We need to work with government, and we need to work with business, and we need to work with civil society. We need to work with education and healthcare. Across all of these sectors, there are some problems that are so big, they call for courage and collaboration. Those are my two key words.
I love it. I think
if I could add,
yes.
There are some events coming up, and you can tell my age, I didn't think of them. Black Church Action Fund has concerts coming up that encourage young people to vote. So put those words in and find out when the next concert is coming up. I believe it's next weekend. And then On Your Vote with Oprah Winfrey and then the NAACP have a big day-long event on tomorrow, the 25th. So just put voting in and things will pop up that will encourage those people who have name identity signing on in huge ways. So your favorite celebrity may be there. But more than anything else, it drives the message home that 27+7, that voting is important.
Absolutely. Oh, it's been such a pleasure to be with both of you today. And so we have focus, we have courage, we have collaboration, we have, doing what is yours today, being woke, and finding out how you can get involved. And I just want to say that, our own research here at ecoAmerica shows that most people they are deeply concerned about climate change, but they do not think other people are. And so it's just another reason that we should be talking about this, that we really should have that courage, and that our elected leaders and our candidates for office need to hear from us. They need to know that we care about climate change and we want them to care about climate change, and that this doesn't necessarily need to be a partisan issue. So with that, a deep thank you to Brian and to Jackie. I hope you've all found this as inspiring and motivating as we all have. And I want to encourage you all to join us next time, which will be next Friday, October 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, for a conversation on collective community action and climate change. We will be hearing from our different sector programs here at ecoAmerica about what we're doing, how we're supporting organizations, and how you can get involved. And always engage with us online with the hashtag Let's Talk Climate, and be sure to subscribe and follow for the latest thought leadership resources and episodes on climate action and advocacy. Share this video. Other people need to hear Jackie. Share this video, let them know that you were inspired today, and God bless, be safe. Until next time, we appreciate it.